Nice. So give me just 1 second.
Judy, you are in the right place if you are coming from YouTube, but hold on 1 second. We're having technical difficulties.
I think we're good to go. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Cool.
Hey, that's live TV, folks. We were having a little bit of an issue on Facebook, but if you're joining us from Facebook or YouTube, welcome to Real Talk. We are going to talk about the exciting changes coming to our 1 to 4 family contracts and our addenda this evening. And 2 of my amazing co-hosts are here to give you guys a little bit more of the meat and potatoes. Kristi Davis, who is with Compass. She is the current chair of Forms and Contracts. You know, Kristi, you've done a lot of things. We're serving currently together on the Metro Tech's Board of Directors and Texas Realtors Board of Directors. So consummate servant you are as well. And you know what, we're just going to throw a little bit. Kristi also loves to scuba. She has gone 1 time and I'm maybe addicted now, right?
Oh, completely. So in love.
I love it. Wine enthusiast, avid traveler, which goes along with scuba and wine, of course, and cat lover extraordinaire.
Yes, and you may meet him tonight.
Okay, that's what we love. So, all right, and Cheri Feuerbacher, is that how you say your last name?
Yes, very good, very good.
Okay, well, for those of you who don't know Cheri and my relationship, she is actually my mother. So from time to time this evening, I might be giving her a hard time and I will pay for it dearly later. So Cheri is actually the current chair of professional development for Metro Tech's, former manager of multiple global real estate brands, but for the past 8 years have had the pleasure of co-owning Red Branch with me. And hasn't it been a delight, Cheri?
Every day.
Every day.
It's an adventure, yes.
Well, and avid dog lover, of course, as well. But we won't be seeing any of your dogs because you were smart and came to the office. So, so there we go. But just wanted to give a little shout out to the chat box. Of course, Kathy Mitchell said, "Hey guys, so glad you get to join us, Kathy." And then, of course, Cindy Bass, who is the vice chair of professional development. Thanks so much for joining us, Cindy. Kristen Price, one of our amazing trainers. Hello, Kristen. And then Terry McNeil. Hello, Terry. So yes, everybody, thank you for joining us. And we're super excited that we're also live streaming into YouTube for the first time. So congrats for you guys being on tonight. But before we get started into the contract updates, which is probably going to be why most people are tuning in, they're chomping at the bit to learn what this means. We do have some changes to CE requirements. And Cheri, since you're chair of professional development, will you get us up to speed on that?
Yes, very quickly. Most of you probably have already seen this, but there has been an added component that you have to have 3 hours of contract. Now that can be gathered in different ways. Some are offering kind of a combination of different courses that can add up to the 3 hours, which is absolutely fine as long as they are approved for that contract element. But I think we'll be having a link put in shortly regarding Metro Tech's. One of the classes we're offering, there's a 5-hour boot camp for contracts that we have the link to, which I highly recommend. Obviously, all of us that are involved in professional development would love for you to take courses at Metro Tech's, but this will give you more than just the bare minimum of your contract requirements to fulfill that. Now, one of the things I did want to mention, yes, we've got that link in there for the boot camp. One of the things I did want to mention too, though, is this is only for those going for their CE. So if you're still in that SAE 2-year period, this is not for you. Don't worry about that. You're on the road to that. You're already accomplishing that. The way they have that did not change. So this is just if you are renewing and are in the CE requirements. You've got to add that that component. So we've got the links there.
Yeah, I think, and that's great. And everybody's like, oh, great, more requirements. But, you know, at the same time, this is something that we really fought for to put into our renewals. And right now, with the hot market that we have right now, I bet you some of us are experiencing why we need some contract refreshers in our renewal requirements. So right now, when we've got, you know, all of these great changes that are happening, what a better time. Get your CE requirements out of the way. And then, like Cheri was saying, MetroTex has tons of options. We have phenomenal trainers on this as well. So if you guys have courses you're teaching anywhere, feel free to drop those links in the chat, because we're here about bringing education to the table and sharpening iron. So I know, let's go back in. We've had a lot of hellos tonight, which is very exciting. They must be excited about you guys being here. But Lisa Harris, we've got Lisa Harris, Alex Williams, and Donna Kapp say hi from Harris Realty at Remax, Lisa Harris, Remax Platinum. So thank you. They've got 3 people on one screen at a time. So that's fantastic. Kanisha, I am sorry if I did not say your name appropriately, but hopefully I did. Good evening to you as well. Lola, I am so happy you joined us again. Lola actually joined us kind of in the beginning stages of our shows, and I think is a newer agent as well. So this is kind of what this is all about. For whatever tenure you are in your stage of career, we're so excited for everybody to join us. And then Angela Downs, hello. Judy Switzer, does that mean we will now have a requirement of 21 hours?
No, we're still at 18. That did not change. It's just now you have to make part of that 18 has to be 3 hours of contracts.
Awesome. And if we're going to kind of be a nerd about it, we probably need more than 3 hours. So go ahead and take that 5-hour boot camp and just get out of the way. Some will even be doing 6. I think Gary, the nerd Nordling, is teaching a 6-hour class. So go ahead and take it. But I think it's a great update to our requirements and a much needed one. So, okay, now let's go into what we're all ready for. And Kristi, I know you're an avid sports fan. So let's do what are we actually updating in our contracts? 2-minute warning style. I'm not timing you, so don't stress out. Just
thank goodness, because I don't know that I can
go.
get through it all in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Because there are 10 paragraphs that have changed in the 1-to-4 family contract. Obviously, it correlates to various other contracts as well. And remember, these are not mandatory until April 1. Hopefully, we'll have them out for voluntary use sometime after TREC meets on February 16th. But we do not have a date as to when they'll be available for voluntary use. So these forms all go mandatory April 1, April Fool's. Maybe not the best day to do it, but remember, April Fool's, contracts are mandatory. Okay, so paragraph 2 is the first paragraph that has some significant change. That's the property access. And that's about security systems and fixtures, things of that nature. Paragraph 4 is really a new paragraph, moved some things into it, but that's all about leases, whether that be residential leases, fixture leases, or natural gas resource type leases. Paragraph 5, big changes here, earnest money and option termination and option fee. We've gotten rid of paragraph 23 that we know of for the termination option, and it's rolled into paragraph 5. So paragraph 8 is the broker sales agent disclosure. If you are a 10% owner in a property, an LLC, or you're representing a significant other, a child, a family member, that's where you're going to disclose that you are a licensed realtor or broker. Paragraph 10, just a little bit of connection of striking out a few things and adding just a little bit of information about smart devices. This is a great thing, and we'll go a little bit more detail later about that. Paragraph 18 really just talks about defining that the funds that the escrow agent is receiving are good before they are dispersing them. Paragraph 21, well, we've added a second line. We still have fax and or email. We just added 2 lines of fax or email in that paragraph. Paragraph 22, we've added the 2 new forms that are going to be available to us in regards to those leases, fixture leases and residential leases. Paragraph 23 has all of the language about the termination option has been moved to paragraph 5. So we've upped paragraph 24 to 23 about, attorneys. And then on the information page, we've just added a little bit of different language in regards to broker fees, and we've eliminated that it's just a percentage. It's a blank, so it could be a flat fee or it could be a percentage. We've also added team names under the agents. So Kristi Davis and Kristi Davis team can be added in there. Option fee receipt has removed that seller or broker is accepting it, and it just says escrow agent. Let's see.
You're doing such a good job, Kristi.
That's it. That's it.
Yes, you're doing a good job. Woo!
Woo!
It's so,
A lot of
I
stuff.
know, but it's all great. I mean, it's good stuff. It all happened for a reason, and I don't want to. We got a ton of comments while you were doing that, so you were just energizing the crowd. But let's see. Yes, Mary, it will be later. So we're doing it live now. Feel free to take care of your kids and chat back with us later, because you can still add comments and we come back and answer your questions. We have someone who said, I'm on SAE now, and I'm so sorry, I didn't want to butcher your name. Can I take that boot camp to improve the contract writing? Well, of course you can. And can it be used for later CE requirement for renewal? Do you guys know the answer to that?
You can't bank CE hours. So if he's in his SAE renewal period for his first renewal, those hours are only going to be able to be used then. So it's each renewal period that's your hours. You can't bank hours or use them for later use.
But definitely take it. It'll be absolutely amazing, like you said, to improve your contract writing. In a market like this, everybody needs to improve their contract writing. So Mary said my birthday, she's an April Fool's baby. So you got April Fool's, Mary's birthday, and contract changes. It's the trifecta. And then, of course, Mr. The Nerd, Gary Nordling, what happens if you use an out-of-date promulgated contract form, ladies?
Well, that's a violation, and you could have a fine for that.
And on top of that, if you're in multiple offers, whoops. So let's not do that, folks. And then Cindy Best, yes, I know. Can you believe they did that? Smart home devices. Now our sellers can't keep checking in on the new owners. That might be partially why we've updated some language.
Let's hope so.
I know, right? Phil, hello. And we appreciate Cole Banker Apex Realtors joining us as well. And then, of course, Roxy Glenn from Metro Tex, all hours can be counted though towards a broker's license. So if that's something that you folks want to do later on, it still goes to it. But ultimately, any education is good education, even if it doesn't count towards a requirement. So now you did such a good job, Kristi. I'm so impressed. Let's kind of go into the main changes, not more of the clerical and condensing paragraphs, but the things that we really want people to at least start thinking about now. And just so the audience knows, we've got 45 minutes left. We're not going to be able to go through all of those changes that Kristi just talked about, but we are going to go highlight the main ones, and we want you guys to interact. So ask the questions and we will do our best to answer. And if we haven't answered tonight, we will come back and make sure that we supply an answer via YouTube or Facebook after this. Scotty said, when did they go in effect? Scotty, April 1st. And if you don't mind posting that in the comment section, Metro Tex, or the Great Wizard of Oz, as I call him, I would appreciate that. But let's go into the exciting leases update to the contract. So, Kristi, you've got it first. Would you mind reading it? And then Cheri and I will participate in this fun game.
Fabulous. So you want me to really word by word read it?
You know what? If you want to sum it up and feel comfortable doing that, go for it.
Okay, perfect. So we're talking about paragraph 4 in our 1 to 4 family. So everything that I'm citing is off of the 1 to 4 this evening. So leases, it talks about except as disclosed in this contract, seller is not aware of any leases affecting the property after the effective date. Seller may not, without buyer's written consent, create any new lease, amend an existing lease, or convey any interest in the property. And then there's 3 options for you to check. There's an A, which there is a residential lease for the property. And then it says that there's an addendum that will explain that residential lease. B, there's a fixture lease to the property. And there is an addendum that it's going to discuss those. And think fixture leases, for example, solar panels, propane tanks, water softeners, security systems. And then we go to C, which is the lease of natural resources. Natural resource lease means an existing oil and gas, mineral, water, wind, or other natural resource lease affecting the property to which the seller is a party. We do not have a separate addendum for this, and please don't confuse this lease portion to seller maintaining their mineral rights. This is not what this is. This is a lease to the property on the mineral rights. You have C1 is seller has delivered the leases to the buyer, or 2, seller has not delivered the copy of the leases to the buyer and will provide a copy within 3 days after the effective date, and buyer may terminate the contract within blank days negotiated between buyer and seller after the date the buyer receives all the natural resource leases, and the earnest money shall be refunded to the buyer. So that's the paragraph in a nutshell. And then we have 2 new addendums that go with this paragraph that are the addendum regarding residential leases and then the addendum regarding fixture leases.
And both of those are, these were much needed. Again, it's come down to how many of us, I'm sure we all have solar panels. You see them on a listing picture, and there's no verbiage in private remarks or in the listing or anything uploaded, and you go, yay! Do they even realize it's a lease? Do they even realize there's a lien against the property? You know what this actually does, and I'm sure this is going to tee up agents actually having these conversations ahead of time, because out of sight, out of mind. It's not necessary, even though solar panels are definitely not out of sight. These are things that were much needed for a buyer to take into consideration to making a proper offer, and understanding all the financial obligations that go along with it. So I know it's not necessarily the sexiest paragraph that we have changed, but it was a much needed one for right now. So Lisa did ask, nothing is checked if the seller has none. Is that correct?
That is correct. If you don't have a residential lease or a fixture lease or natural resource, there's no reason to check any of these boxes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, is there a copy of the new changes that we can see? Patricia Brown, that is a great question. And yes, we are going to put a link of some sort into here to probably the Texas Realtors website that allows us to click on that and see all the red line changes. And that's under adopted when it's under there. So
you can go out to the TREC website or to the Texas Realtor website and find all of these changes as well. Or perfect. Go take a contracts class, an update class, and they'll go through all of these things with you too, one-on-one. I encourage you, please make sure you're reading these contracts. Please make sure you're asking questions. We've got now until mandatory April 1 to understand these contracts so that you can explain them to your buyers and sellers and allow them to make the best decision for themselves in engaging in contracts.
So Cheri, should we wait till March 31st to start reading over these? I mean, you're already making the face, so I can already tell where your brain's going.
No, we've talked about this before, and I'm sure Kristi feels the same way. Really, when the first proposed changes come out, I'm still the old nerd that prints and highlights and puts sticky notes, and I question everything and everybody, and I role play that out myself just to see where this is going. And we all know that the first changes that come out, the proposed changes can have a proposed update, and that goes on. But these are what's going into effect, and you should be studying them now. Drawing up. I've always recommended to a newer agent or someone that really wants to learn, print it out, highlight it, read it. If you don't, thank you. If you don't understand it, go ask your manager, your broker, another agent that's been mentoring you. Go to a class. You don't need the hours. Oh, well, you need the help in understanding our new contracts. So you're the one that's expected to be proficient in it, not your buyer.
Absolutely.
So I think we've done a great, Ashley's heard this 572 times, but I think technology has been wonderful. We don't go out at 9 o'clock at night and have to drive over an offer to someone's house with an option fee check to it. You know, now we have electronic signatures. We don't have to stand by a fax machine and wait till the roll comes out and slice it into 8.5 by 11 sheets. However, I think that has created a little laxness in our understanding of our own forms.
Well, you know what? Hold on, because Cheri, you did a quote earlier when we were discussing this, and I think it needs to be put on a T-shirt. And you said, if it doesn't have a fillable blank, agents skip it. So when we have all these brand new agents that are not learning to fill out contracts by hand or present them to a buyer across the table, you're just going through zip forms or Sinet or some back agent software, and it's only prompting you to fill in the spots. And those are the only things you're asking questions about, which is quite dangerous.
And the terminology I used to use when I was teaching, and Kristi, you may have too, and again, Ashley, poor Ashley has heard it forever, is you need to know the contract upside down. Because
Absolutely.
we used to present it at the kitchen table upside down. And each paragraph was important because when the person was sitting across from you, they expected you not to say nothing on this page, nothing on this page, just look at this paragraph, initial here. We went through every single item, and it does. One of you brought up, if you're in a multiple offer situation, how you completed that contract form can be the difference on your buyer winning the bid or not, even if you're not the highest bidder.
No, that's absolutely right. And we have a couple, and I don't want to get lost in the comments. So Judy Switzer asked, pertaining to the leases, does the residential lease relate to the seller's temporary residential lease?
No.
These are ones that are present prior to contract. So a temporary lease would not be anything that was prior to entering into this contract. But great question, Judy.
Yep.
Yes.
Cheri, you obviously have a fan in Gary because he said, yay, Cheri Feuerbacher. Yep. So, and that's the cute grandbaby. So, Linda Calicut, one of our amazing trustees and wonderful broker and former president of Metrotech, said, you do need the hours as of now. So learn, folks.
Yes.
February 1 is when the contract hours went into effect.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're already there. And then does agree with Cheri. She likes paper and said, sorry, trees. So that's just where we're at. But we did then drop the link to the adopted changes so everybody can click on those if you want to right now and follow along. So Carl, that is a great question about Airbnb obligations. Kristi, have you heard any of that in teaching your classes yet? Any of that question?
So again, we haven't had any discussions in an Airbnb. Obviously, you've got your city requirements that you have to deal with on those components. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? But as far as this is talking about a lease that is in effect with a tenant, if we're talking the residential lease, that is in effect, that is going to alter the ability for a buyer to utilize that property at time of closing and funding. Buyer needs to be aware of that, understand what that contract looks like, know that they have security deposits and a move in, move out condition form, have a copy of the lease and all of the terms that go along with it. So that's really what this is in reference to, as opposed to, say, a option that somebody was leasing out their home randomly, so to speak, as an Airbnb.
Hey, so Carl, I would let your sellers know if that's what they're doing. I'd probably halt that immediately because it's just not wise all the way through. Even if we love that extra income, something terrible can happen and make the contract just fall apart. So, but it was a great question, Carl, and I appreciate it. So let's move on because we have some other ones that we know are really going to give us some extra questions. So We have accessories in regards to security systems that are not fixtures and controls. Will you just read the blue part, the part that was added to that?
Absolutely. So it's under 2C, and it's talking about security systems that aren't fixtures, and what they gave a definition to what controls meant. Controls include sellers' transferable rights to the software and applications used to access and control improvements or accessories, and hardware used solely to control improvements and accessories. So we've given a definition to what controls mean, which I think will be very beneficial because it was just gray matter before.
We all love gray matter. Don't we love to? We love doing that in contract negotiation. Surprise buyer, move in, and there you go. But let's jump then to smart devices where that was added, because I think those kind of overlap in the discussion that we're going to have. So would you mind giving us what their paragraph now states?
Absolutely. So smart devices goes under paragraph 10, possession. So it's 10C, smart devices. And again, we're giving a definition to what it is that didn't exist before. Smart devices means a device that connects to the internet to enable remote use, monitoring, or management of the property, items identified in the non-realty addendum, items in a fixture lease assigned to buyer at the time the seller delivers possession of the property to buyer. Seller shall terminate, deliver buyer written information containing all access codes, usernames, passwords, and applications buyer will need to access, operate, manage, and control the smart device, and terminate and remove all access and connections to the improvements and accessories from any of seller's personal devices, including but not limited to phones and computers.
I know. So, and again, this is happening because I think we've all heard stories that have either happened to us or somebody very close to us where a seller is still using, or somebody's using their Netflix on a television that conveyed. Maybe they started to play with the lights because they had too much to drink one night and they thought it'd be funny to get the new buyer. And that has
unlocked the door.
Talk to them through a camera. I mean, the list can go on and on. And while it's funny, it's also really scary when you kind of think about it. And smart home devices and smart home features are actually one of the things that millennial buyers love about homes. But we have to be cognizant as agents when we're facilitating your side to have these conversations. So, I kind of wrote down a couple of things that really highlighted for me. I went to a smart home class before this was even done, and it was talking about before the contract was updated. There's some confusion on, like, let's say everything is run off of your Google Hub system, and you decided, I want to run all of my smart devices from here. It's not required. They could be on apps. They could be on a remote. However, that's how they installed it. Well, no, but I want to take my Google Hub because I'm going to do this to my next house, and I don't want to pay another $200 for that. Well, no, Mr. Seller, because if you remove that Google Hub, and if I'm mincing those words, I apologize for tech people, but if you remove that Google, Amazon, Siri Hub, whatever you like, and all of those features no longer work, you're busted. That's kind of the rule of thought. If you're removing something and all the features that are supposed to convey can no longer operate, you gotta leave it, people. So, that's the easy way to kind of describe Absolutely. It. So go ahead, Kristi.
Or remove everything prior to listing your property, and there's no question, and repair any cosmetic damages that you caused.
But I love this. But why would I do that? Because it's such a selling feature. Wait, hold on a second. But you want to keep it. But it'll make them excited that they could do this themselves. Yeah, no, that's called a bait and switch, Mr. Seller. And listing agents better have the kahunas to start having those conversations, okay? I don't know that we've had a lot of questions. Carl, for another good one, what if the seller does a factory reset? Do they have to give access info? Good question.
Good question, but obviously yes, because the buyer is going to have to be able to have access to it. Even if there's a factory reset, you still have to have the ability for the buyer to access these components. So yes, access. You just may not have to give them your personal passwords and things of that nature because you've done that factory reset.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate. Carl might be meaning like even when you reset your phone and it prompts you to then start your own account, here, put in your email address, do that. Carl, if it does that and you're at like the register portion of our programming, then that's fine. But like Kristi said, they have to be able to access it. They can't just, they shouldn't have to hire a professional to then come in and decipher how to access all the functioning components. It might be a pool, might be a sprinkler system. It might not just be smart home technology, and we all need to be cognizant. Carl, again, for another question, does the hub or controlling of device have to be a part of the non-realty? Cheri, what is your opinion on this? Because I know you have one.
I would refer back to accessories. That's my personal opinion. I would refer back to page 1 on accessories and say it's not non-realty because it's expected to stay, which is going to lead you to the next question on the list. That's my answer.
What about writing a note? Smart devices will not convey when the seller does not want to remove them before they move out. So a note, that's technically an exclusion. So that's what we would call it, an exclusion, not necessarily just a sticky note, but that's why we have it there. If it's something that is automatically going to convey, but you are wanting to keep it, then yes, that is where you would put it. Now, I'll play devil's advocate.
In the listing agreement, needs to be in MLS, and it needs to be in the contract.
Don't just rely because you put it on MLS that then it doesn't need to be in the contract when a buyer's writing that up. Now, the flip side of that, if it's something where it's gray matter, like we've talked about in the past, and listing agents haven't taken our fantastic boot camp contract update courses or taken one of these, it might still be wise, at least in the beginning stages, to have that discussion with the listing agent. Hey, I just want to make sure, is the seller prepared to leave X because that's how everything's controlled? I don't want to be redundant and put it in the non-realty since it's technically an accessory, but this is kind of an updated, evolving situation. And that's a great way to do it.
I'm sorry. Don't you find, Kristi and Ashley both, that in these changes, if you've been in it long enough, we've gone through lots of these, right?
Yes.
In those early stages, the best thing you can do is communicate highly with the other agent.
Always. All things can be solved through communication.
Absolutely. But in the initial stages, especially of a new form, a new contract update, that is the time where you don't assume. You don't assume they've had a contracts class. You don't assume they've renewed and gotten their 3-hour update in their CE. You don't assume they have a broker or a manager teaching from the actual document. You assume that you might be the only one in that transaction that understands what's going on, and you just courtesy and communication and get it done.
And you know that smart device is really important to your buyer client. So you need to be the advocate, and you are working for your buyer client. So you need to ensure that is going to stay, that it is going to convey, that the components are going to be there. That is your job as that buyer's representative, to reach out and communicate with the other side of the transaction.
Yes.
Amen. So I think we've learned, obviously, among the changes, communicate. So, like Kristi said, that kind of solves all the issues. And I'm sorry I got distracted there, Kristi. Was that an airplane in the background?
I do believe so.
Kristi is also on a flight
motorcycle.
path.
Sorry.
Yes. No, it was great. I loved it. So let's go to the HOA, the which we shortened it for the HOA addendum, which is not the proper name. So Kristi, please enlighten us on that. Let's spend a couple of minutes on that, because then obviously everybody wants to talk about the new option fee update. So
absolutely. So this is, although it looks like a small change, I think it's a great change. And the Broker Lawyer Committee advocated a lot for this, especially the lawyers on the side, was adding in that fees and deposits for reserves. In other words, all fees relating to the transfer of the property under the HOA addendum or the property subject to mandatory membership in a property owners association, the proper term, that they're not going to just have it be transfer fee. It's all fees. And title company, when they're receiving instructions and they're working up the CDs, all fees. So buyer is paying up to $100 and seller is paying the remaining. $100 will be used for all fees of transferring that property into that buyer's name, and then the seller would pay the remainder. This is a great change. It eliminates gray matter and fighting.
But Kristi, what if there's a $5,000 deposit that every new buyer, every new owner needs to pay on their account with the HOA? That doesn't mean that, does it? Well,
when you say deposit, a lot of times that is they call it a one-time fee, or they call it a initial reserve or an initial investment. There's lots of different words. So that would probably still be considered a separate item. However, I think there's going to be sorry to add gray matter to this one, there's going to be some discovery on this as to really how this looks, because your HOAs are going to submit the invoices, and that's going to look a little differently than how the title company may or may not interpret it in regards to fees and deposits and reserves. But it does say, except as provided in paragraph A. So it talks about in paragraph A how fees are who's paying for what, right? For the subdivision information. And then buyer shall pay any and all association fees, deposits, reserves, and other charges associated with the transfer of the property not to exceed. Okay, so it's going to really mean how that looks and how that is interpreted as far as that transfer fee or that initial deposit or reserves.
And that's not going to be hit with every market the same way either.
No,
but
not
we're
at all.
going to have some markets that do have, some that have very tight HOAs, and they do require a significant deposit toward reserve.
Like
like you said.
Fee. We have
Absolutely.
one here locally that has an education fee associated with it.
Absolutely. And what we've got to start being aware, our listing agents and our buyer's agents need to be aware that we've been very, very haphazard about putting in 150, 250, whatever that fee may be. If there's a hefty reserve, that means the seller is expected to pay. And that seller probably paid that for himself as a buyer when he purchased.
Yep.
And so again, understand what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Understand this form, because it can change greatly, and know in advance what that looks like from the seller side, the listing agent providing that information.
Absolutely. Mr. Seller, please reach out to your HOA and find out what this fee is. Remember, we don't want to take on all the liability ourselves.
Absolutely.
Have your client reach out. What does that fee look like? All
Yes.
fees, deposits and reserves associated with transferring the property. That's the important part. All fees realistically now.
Which, I mean, it's another negotiable item, and it probably should be. And because we've talked about it before, not to say that anybody is ever trying to abscond or hide anything, but maybe Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, we don't know, or maybe Mr. and Mrs. Seller are privy to some information, but it wouldn't be highly great from a marketable standpoint. So it's not something they just are transparent about. But now, since this is a negotiable item because they've combined C and D, it's now something that we just need to head off at the pass, and it creates us that dialogue opportunity with our sellers before that property is even listed. But buyer's agents, make sure you know that as well, because it's not a slam dunk that the sellers are now going to take on all those expenses as well. So, okay, that was super exciting. We had no comments, which is what we thought that was going to be. But if you run into this a week or two from now and you remember this, we did our job. So I'm going to do a fake drum roll because this is what we've all been waiting for. It is the update in regards to option fee delivery. All right, Kristi, hit us with riveting contract update.
So I'm thinking we've all been asking for this as agents for maybe 7 years. And it's just taken a long time for the broker lawyer committee to wrap their brain around it and how we could really do this and not take on liability and all of those fun things. So this is a long paragraph to read, and I'm going to just pick portions of it that I want to read. Okay. So 5A, delivery of earnest money and option fee. Within 3 days after the effective date, buyer must deliver to blank as escrow agent, your title company, at the address, the dollar amount as earnest money, and the dollar amount as option fee. The earnest money and option fee shall be made payable to escrow agent and may be paid separately or combined in a single payment. So first little nutshell, payable to your escrow agent, your title company. 1 check, 2 checks, 1 wire transfer, 1 other product of online delivery like an HSA or something to that effect, however you're managing that with your clients. So that's the first thing. The second component is we still have a delivery for an additional earnest money. That's 5A1. 5A2 is, this is where I want to make sure that we all understand this too, because it is earnest money and option money now combined. If the last day to deliver earnest money, option fee, or additional earnest money falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday, the time to deliver the earnest money, option fee, or additional earnest money as applicable is extended until the next day that is not a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday. So the key word there again is last day. So if the last day deliver your earnest money or option fee is Saturday, Ashley, when's our option and earnest money due?
Monday, unless it's a legal holiday.
Correct. And then if it's a legal holiday, what day is our earnest money and option fee due? Yes, Tuesday.
Good. Cheri would have lashed me in the parking lot if I got that wrong, just FYI. But what I wanted to throw out there as a devil's advocate portion, what determines a legal holiday? Because we have local, we have federal. Some title companies choose to be closed on all federal holidays, and some pick and choose. So is it title company based?
So that's going to be a hard one that sometimes legal holiday, you're right. That leads some gray matter because sometimes title companies are open on a quote unquote legal holiday and sometimes they're closed. I will say that it will be defined as that title company's legal holiday because at the end of the day, if you can't physically deliver it,
sure,
you can't physically, but it can't be accepted via a wire or a HSA payment or something to that effect. So let's say it's President's Day. Mm-hmm. That's a legal holiday, right? It's a legal banking holiday. Title companies, most of the time, are closed. Some title companies stay open.
No, and that's the whole point there is you need to double check. Don't just tell your buyer, no big deal. Mm-hmm. Yep, no big deal. We don't have to worry about it. It's something that you immediately need to make sure. Because if it's National Margarita Day and you've got a really dope title company that likes to close, and do it, hey, do your thing. But, you can't rely on that just because your phone says it's a holiday. So I'm just throwing that out there. Yep. that double check on that
No.
portion.
And double check with your title company. I'm noticing that in my contract, it says that our option and earnest money is due Good Friday. Is that considered a legal holiday for you, Mr. Title Company, Mrs. Title Company?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
So,
communicating that back to the other side of the transaction. By the way, title company is going to be closed. We're going to deliver our earnest money and option money day 2 instead of day 3, so we don't have to worry about it.
hold on a second. Does that mean you're going to be proactive, Kristi?
Yes, we
Oh,
should
my
be
goodness.
proactive.
Okay. I love that. Okay, I need to check. Oh, I think okay, so Carl. Hey, thanks, MetroTex, for giving me a jab. I appreciate it. Carl has another question. I think it's when it is a bank holiday. You know, Carl, that is a good statement, and most will agree with that. However, there are some title companies that just because they can't fund a deal, they're still open. And I've run into that actually this year. So I wouldn't rely on that as the hard and fast rule necessarily. Just double check. Cheri, were you going to say something?
Yes.
And again, let's avoid that. Again, train yourself, communicate and counsel with your client that although we have 3 days per the contract to deliver this, we need to deliver it day 1.
Absolutely.
Or at best, day 2. Let's not wait till the 3rd day because there's this other part of this contract here that says seller can terminate a contract if earnest money is not delivered. So let's go there a little bit. So I also want to talk about too, so paragraph 5A3, the amount escrow agent receives under this paragraph shall be applied first to the option fee, then to the earnest money, and then to any additional earnest money. So let's play devil's advocate here. Earnest money is $5,000. Option fee is $500. Buyer only deposits $4,500. What's short? The earnest money. And therefore, seller, until buyer puts the additional $500 towards the earnest money with the title company, seller has the right in those 3 days to terminate the contract.
What if they got another offer?
Exactly.
Okay, so you know what? Hold on 1 second. We might have to go back for just a second because I was just notified by special intel through these AirPods that our public chat stopped updating. So it wasn't that we were not fun after all. It was technology. So we have Matthew said he wishes HOAs would stop using the term initiation fee. Sellers don't like the idea of paying the buyer's initiation fee. I would agree with that, which is probably why some of this came in. Judy Switzer, what about assessments? And that was something that obviously I figured would pop in, and we just thought we had a dull crowd there for a moment. So Kristi, are you aware of the assessments?
So what I am being shared with that the interpretation of this assessments are not included in the transfer of the property. That is not part of that. Seller is still responsible for paying those assessments. And then if they roll into time of ownership of buyer then would be responsible for paying those assessments.
Okay. And then we've got Pam Smith. The buyer has the right to cancel a contract after learning fees, but sellers do not. Need to learn that info at time of listing so seller is not caught by surprise.
Yeah.
That is true, Pam. That is very true. So, okay. And my special intel has told me we are caught up for now. So let's go back to option and earnest.
Okay. So we read the part that the option fee gets credited first if there's shortages in the dollar amounts. And then secondly, also this alleviates title companies' liability that under 5A4, buyer authorizes escrow agent to release and deliver the option fee to seller at any time without further notice to or consent from buyer, and releases escrow agent from liability for delivery of the option fee to seller. The option fee will be credited to the sales price at closing. So that gave some insurance to the title company that they have some release of liability in that component.
Which is super important, Kristi, and just some highlights that I popped in that just, really I thought needed to be discussed was, one is not crediting the option is no longer an option, ironically.
Yeah.
So people need to understand that. Oh, it's obviously a great tool right now in the marketplace if you want to be really aggressive and offer $500 to $1,000 for option, and you're not going to credit that back to the buyer. Unfortunately, that is no longer an option. So kind of think about that when you're having that dialogue with your buyer. Also, something that we had talked about, Kristi, is the fact that releasing the option fee to the seller, which is what you kind of just discussed, which is anytime the seller can say, hey, give me my money. I'm owed the option money. I want it in my bank account. And they have the right to do that.
Yep. And I've heard from our title friends that it must be in writing from the seller that they want the option fee released to them, and then they will do so. Otherwise, per the contract, it's going to be credited to them at the closing table.
Well, now it wouldn't be credited to the seller though, correct?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, and here's the other part of that. So everybody can kind of understand what that looks like. Nothing's really changing in that regards. It's just how it's being dispersed or not dispersed. And then on the closing disclosure, where the debits and credits, if the seller's already received it, it will be debited from their column, just like it always was, and credited to the buyer.
Yep.
But if the title company never dispersed it to the seller, it will be credited to the buyer, and it won't show as a debit to the seller. So we need to be cognizant of that when we're looking at our closing disclosures for our clients as well, so we don't look like goobers.
Absolutely.
Because we miss that. Nobody likes to be a goober. You also said, which I thought was great, termination during the option period. Option immediately released to the seller, earnest money immediately released to the buyer. So, I mean, it really just, spelled that out. Do you see, in talking to your title partners or anything else, Cheri or Kristi, have you heard whether or not they're going to be sticklers then on the release? Because there are some title companies that have required release of earnest money even within the option period, which is not highly recommended by agents. But have you kind of heard whether or not that might make some a little more relaxed on that?
Some definitely, I've heard that. Again, it's a business decision or a standard of business that the title runs, and we really truly don't have control over that.
Sure.
I know that it reads the way it's supposed to in the contract, that buyer has the right and it shall be released. But sometimes, they are mitigating their risk when they have that release of earnest money or release
Sure.
of anything. So again, reach out to your title partners, ask them these questions before you're engaging in a contract. Help me understand how you operate. Help me know this so that I can share with my client, so that we're all better at making good decisions and I can counsel my clients better.
Again, it goes back to communication and being proactive. And I couldn't say that enough, especially in the climate that we are. Again, just because you have to hurry up and get an offer in doesn't mean that still makes you not have to do your due diligence.
Right.
Make those phone calls and make sure you're informing your buyer of what truly could happen. Because if it is a title company that still requires a release of earnest money during the option period upon termination, that buyer's earnest money then is going to be sitting there. So
and note that the escrow agent, the title company, is always going to hold those funds until they are proven good funds before they release any monies.
Sure.
Whether that be option or earnest at this point now. And that is in the contract. That language has been put in.
So we've got 5 minutes left. I've got 2 more questions. Great. We've just blown through this, but we've got J.R. Russell. What if combined check to title is late? I've heard, unlike now, the option time is not granted. That is correct, JR. You do not get an option period. The seller can also terminate the contract, and you do not pass go, sir. Cheri, did you have something else?
Well, we've heard in the past, well, it was snowing and I couldn't get there. It was this, my car broke down. None of those things are valid. What you said earlier, Kristi, just go the earliest day possible to get it in. Don't wait for, like Carl said, bank holiday, federal holiday, whatever it may be. Go as soon as you have the opportunity and confirm if the title company is open. If they are, don't take the risk.
And with our options that we have of not having to physically get in cars and take checks, that you can actually deposit via wire transfers or random other things. Utilize those options if it's the best tool for your buyer and client.
Poor Cheri.
Did Cheri
get booted out? She got kicked out, but that's okay. I told her to go ahead and click back in to sign off if she can, and if not, Kristi, you and I will just finish it out. But Margarita has said she said has the right to terminate even within. Seller has the right to terminate even within the 3 days. So the seller does not have the right to terminate unless the buyer does not submit their earnest money within those 3 days. So the seller only has the right, and that was the last contract change because we never had that before. It was just, time is of the essence. So
seller doesn't have an unrestricted right to terminate. It's based on the earnest money.
Yes. Lisa Harris, doesn't it have to clear the title company's bank before they send it to the title company? Or I think what you're meaning is to send it back potentially, Lisa. And yes, it does have to clear before they can disperse funds. And I'm going fast because we have a couple more things we have to do after this. Okay. Still says the seller sends an email to title regarding the option money to be placed into their account, ? That is correct. They will figure, and I guess that's something else to be considered, whether or not are they going to wire it directly to the seller or probably cut a check directly to the seller to pick up and cash in regards to the
I would
option.
imagine, and that's going to be title company specific. So again, reach out to your title company partner and ask these questions. Perfect. And ask them before April 1.
You just answered the last question, Kristi. Robert asked when they were going in. Obviously, Robert was a late to the game, but Robert, April 1st.
Yep.
So, and I don't know if everybody watched me a little bit. Did you hear that feedback, Kristi?
I do.
Okay.
No problem.
Well, hey, there's my watch. We're going to try to go in. I actually was looking at my watch because I'm currently being outbid as far as our Valentine's Day tree pack auction. And I know we've talked about that in the board of directors, but it's going on till 7:30 this evening, folks. And I'm really glad Cheri actually dropped off because currently I'm winning a Ninja Foodie pressure cooker, a massage gun, some lights for my daughter's room, some oversized dice for the backyard, even an outdoor bar. And I'm considering bidding on an inflatable kayak. So there's something for everybody in our auction. And if you're not aware what Tree Pack is, you should be, because we're essential because of Tree Pack in the state of Texas. So we've got that auction going on, bidding till 7:30. And I don't know about you, Kristi, but I'm pretty excited. And I think I am going to go get that inflatable kayak.
I love that.
As soon as we're done. So, and being a wine enthusiast, I did actually submit a lot of wine-oriented auction items. So, okay.
I have to go back in and check.
Yes, you need to go back in and check. But it is 6:29. This has been a whirlwind. I told you it would go really, really fast. And there were there was a lot of fantastic questions. And I really, yes, of course. Yes, Metrotex, good job. Show someone or even yourself just how much you care. Browse the Valentine's online auction with a little something for everyone. It's in there. You can go to mymetrotex.org/treepack, I believe, to go on there. And you have to be, a realtor or one of our solicitable class affiliates to do so. But get on there and bid, because again, we're all here and able to do real estate because of Tree Pack. But Kristi, I'm going to give you a second to parting words, wisdom, goodbyes, whatever you'd like to say?
So obviously you did not learn about all of the changes to the contract. So please make sure you're either printing these off, looking at them, reading them, hitting a contract update class, making sure you're talking to your broker managers, your broker of records, whatever that looks like, your mentor. Understand these contracts now, know them, understand them, because you need to be that advocate for your buyer and seller clients and be able to fill these out and explain these contracts. No, you're not an attorney, but you need to be able to advise your clients.
Well, I think that's what we signed on to do. We have a fiduciary duty to our clients, and we also have to have, the professional competency to be able to go through these contracts. And so I think this was great. And ultimately, I know we still have some yays and nays over whether these were all good and bad changes, but guess what, folks? It's done. So the complaining time is over. It is gone. And so take the next few weeks to really study these. And if you have questions, reach out to us. You can reach out to us here. Reach out to Metro Tex, and like Kristi said, reach out to your managers, your brokers, but don't wait to March 31st to figure out what these changes look like. So we appreciate each and every one of you joining us this evening. And you know what? This will not be a goodbye. It's just a farewell for now, and we'll see everyone soon.
All right.